Hello everyone, my name is Adugo and you're watching the African Tales channel by Adugo. Before we dive into today's video, please kindly click on that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now let's get into the story. Ifeoma was a bright young woman with a smile that could light up any room. She had grown up with her mother, Nneka, who had loved her fiercely since the day she was born. Nneka was a strong woman, though life hadn't always been kind to her. Ifeoma's father had left when she was just 6 months old, vanishing without a word, leaving Nneka to raise her daughter on her own. Growing up, Ifeoma always knew her mother had a sadness in her eyes whenever people mentioned her father. But Nneka never let that sadness keep her from giving her daughter the best she could. Nneka made sure Ifeoma knew their Igbo traditions, values and culture, and she told her stories about their family's history. But now, Ifeoma was old enough to get married, and her mother had only one wish, that Ifeoma would marry a good Igbo man. Nneka wanted her daughter to be happy, but she also wanted to protect her from the heartache she herself had gone through. Her biggest fear was that Ifeoma might face the same disappointment she had if she married someone from another tribe. But Ifeoma's heart was open to the world, and she believed that love should not be limited by tribal lines. One day, Ifeoma met a man named Kola. He was kind, funny and thoughtful. And he wasn't Igbo. He was Yoruba, and they got along like they'd known each other their entire lives. Ifeoma felt a special spark with Kola, something she'd never felt before. They began to spend time together, and Ifeoma found herself laughing more, feeling lighter and happier than ever. When Ifeoma shared her happiness with her mother, Nneka's face grew tense, and her eyes filled with worry. She tried to hide it, but Ifeoma could see her mother's concern. Nneka took a deep breath, saying softly, "Ifeoma, my dear, you know how much I love you. But please, do not forget the pain I went through with your father. He wasn't Igbo, and he left us just like that. I don't want you to suffer the same way." Ifeoma's heart was torn. She loved her mother deeply and understood her worries. But she also felt something special with Kola. Something she didn't want to give up just because of their different tribes. Could love really conquer all, even the pain her mother feared? Ifeoma sat in her room that night, her mind filled with her mother's words. She loved Nneka deeply, and she didn't want to disappoint her. But whenever she thought of Kola, her heart felt light, and she couldn't imagine a life without him. She tossed and turned between her mother's wishes and the growing feelings she had for Kola. Days passed and Ifeoma continued seeing Kola. Their bond grew stronger, and he treated her with kindness, respect and love. Kola knew about her mother's concerns, and he understood. One evening, he looked into her eyes and said, "Ifeoma, I respect your mother, and I would never want to hurt you or her. I will do whatever it takes to prove to her that I am serious about us." Ifeoma's heart soared. Kola's words were full of sincerity. She knew that he was willing to make things work, no matter how difficult it might be. One afternoon, Ifeoma finally gathered her courage to have a serious conversation with her mother. "Mama, I know you worry because of what you went through. But Kola is different. He respects you and he respects me. He wants to meet you and show you that he is serious about our relationship." Nneka looked into her daughter's hopeful eyes, her heart softening. She saw how much Kola meant to her, and for a moment, she remembered what it felt like to be young and in love. But she also remembered the pain she had endured. "All right, Ifeoma," she finally said, with a sigh. "I will meet him, but remember, I am doing this because I love you, I just want you to be safe and happy." When Ifeoma told Kola, he was overjoyed. They made plans for him to meet Nneka the following weekend, and Ifeoma prayed that everything would go well. The day of the meeting finally arrived. Ifeoma waited anxiously in her mother's small living room, fidgeting with her dress and glancing nervously at the door. Kola arrived promptly, dressed in a neat traditional Yoruba attire. He carried a gift of fresh fruits and a woven basket, a gesture of respect for Ifeoma's mother. When Nneka saw him, her expression was hard to read. They sat down together and Kola spoke respectfully to Nneka, sharing his background, his family values, and his intention towards Ifeoma. He expressed his admiration for Ifeoma's culture and traditions, promising to honor them if they were given a chance to be together. Nneka listened carefully, her face still, but her eyes betrayed a mix of emotions. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "Kola, you seem like a good man, but love is not the only thing needed for a lasting relationship. My people's ways are different from yours. Are you truly ready to understand the ways of our family and our culture and support Ifeoma in keeping them?" Kola nodded earnestly. "I understand, Ma, and I am willing to learn. I love Ifeoma and I want to support her in every way I can. I believe love can bridge the differences between us." Nneka looked at Ifeoma, who was sitting quietly, her eyes filled with hope. She could see how much Kola meant to her daughter, and deep down, she wanted Ifeoma to have the happiness she herself had lost. But just as she was beginning to soften, the door burst open. A distant relative, an elderly aunt, had overheard whispers of the meeting and was now standing in the doorway, her face twisted with anger. "What is going on here?" the aunt demanded. "How can you even think of letting an outsider into our family?" The tension in the room grew thick as Ifeoma's hopes for her mother's acceptance were suddenly thrown into question. Ifeoma's heart sank as her aunt's sharp words filled the room. She looked at her mother, silently pleading for her support. But Nneka seemed frozen, caught between her daughter's happiness and the expectations of her family. The aunt, who had always been strict about traditions, marched further into the room, her eyes darting between Kola and Ifeoma. "Do you realize what you're doing, Nneka? Letting this stranger into our family? Have you forgotten what happened with Ifeoma's father?" Kola shifted uncomfortably, but he remained respectful, lowering his head. He could sense the storm brewing and knew that this was no ordinary meeting. It was a test, one he couldn't afford to fail. Nneka took a shaky breath, her eyes filling with the memories of her past. She looked at her aunt and then at her daughter. "Auntie, I understand your concerns. I've thought about them every day since Ifeoma first told me about Kola. But I don't want to punish her for the mistakes of others. Maybe this is different." The aunt's eyes widened. "Different? You think this young man is different? Don't be a fool, Nneka. Men from outside our tribe don't respect our ways. They don't understand us. Look at what Ifeoma's father did to you. Do you want her to suffer the same fate?" Ifeoma's hands clenched in her lap. She felt the weight of her aunt's words, but she knew Kola. She knew he was different. Summoning all her courage, she finally spoke up. "Auntie, I understand your fears, but Kola is not my father. He is kind and he is respectful. He's willing to learn about our culture. He's here today because he wants to meet you, to show you he respects our family." The aunt turned to Ifeoma, her expression softening just slightly. "Ifeoma, my child, I know you think you love him, but love blinds us sometimes. We can't ignore the wisdom of our ancestors and the experiences we've been through." Kola cleared his throat gently. "Ma," he addressed the aunt with as much respect as he could muster, "I can't change your history or your past hurts, but I promise to honor and cherish Ifeoma. I am willing to work to gain your trust." The room fell silent. Nneka glanced at her aunt, then back at Ifeoma. She took Ifeoma's hands, squeezing it gently. "My dear, if this truly the man you believe is right for you, then you have my support. But you must understand that this journey may be hard." The aunt shook her head in disapproval, but she didn't leave. Instead, she crossed her arms, watching closely as if waiting for Kola to slip up. After a tense moment, Nneka spoke again. "Kola, if you want to marry my daughter, then you must honor our traditions. You will go through the steps as any Igbo man would. You will perform the rites and learn our ways. This is not only a test for you, but a promise to our family that you respect us." Kola nodded solemnly. "I will do whatever it takes, ma." Seeing Kola's determination, Ifeoma's heart filled with pride. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she believed in Kola's love for her. Together, they would face these challenges and prove to her family that their love was real. But as the evening drew to a close, Ifeoma noticed the look in her aunt's eyes. It was a look that promised more obstacles ahead, challenges she and Kola would have to overcome if they wanted to be together. The days that followed were filled with a mixture of excitement and tension. Ifeoma felt hopeful, yet she could sense the weight of her family's scrutiny. Her aunt, though quiet for the moment, had an intense watchful eye on every step of her relationship with Kola. And her mother, though supportive, seemed to carry her own hidden fears that Ifeoma could feel but couldn't reach. Meanwhile, Kola didn't waste any time. He began learning about Igbo traditions, studying the customs, and speaking with elders in Ifeoma's community. He knew it would be hard to gain their trust, but he wanted Ifeoma's family to see that his intentions were pure. Ifeoma helped him prepare for every step, guiding him through the traditions and rituals he would need to complete if he truly wanted to become a part of her family. One afternoon, as Kola was meeting with an elder to learn about the Igbo customs surrounding marriage, Ifeoma's aunt appeared unexpectedly. She had heard about his efforts, and although she hadn't openly objected to Nneka's decision to allow him into the family, her skepticism remained strong. So she said, eyeing Kola as he stood respectfully in the elder's home, "You think studying our ways for a few days is enough to understand our people?" Kola looked up, surprised to see her, but not shaken. "No, ma. I know that learning traditions takes time, and I have a lot of respect for them. But I am committed to doing my best, no matter how long it takes." The aunt raised her chin, clearly unimpressed. "We will see how long this commitment of yours lasts. There is a ceremony this weekend, a cleansing rite that Igbo men do to show purity of heart before marriage. Will you join it?" Kola nodded firmly. "Yes, I will." When Ifeoma heard about the challenge her aunt had set, she was both worried and touched. This cleansing rite was one of the more difficult ceremonies. It involved a full day of fasting, reflection, and reciting blessings for the ancestors. Kola would need to go through this process with a sincere heart, or the elders would notice. The day of the ceremony arrived. Kola dressed in the traditional white wrapper and beads Ifeoma had given him, joining the other young men of the community at dawn. Ifeoma watched from a distance, her heart pounding with hope and anxiety. This ceremony was not just a test for Kola, it was a test of her family's willingness to accept him. The hours passed slowly under the blazing sun. Kola and the other men recited chants, walked through the river for a ritual cleansing, and fasted together. The elders led the prayers, invoking blessings upon the men who had shown devotion to their heritage. As the sun set, Kola returned to the village center, exhausted but visibly calm. Ifeoma felt a surge of pride as she saw him, tired yet unshaken. He had faced every challenge with humility, and he had shown her family that his intentions were sincere. But her aunt wasn't finished. As soon as the ceremony ended, she approached him with another test. "If you are serious about marrying Ifeoma, then there is one last thing you must do," she said coldly. "You must visit Ifeoma's father, go to him and ask him why he left his family." Everyone fell silent. This was an unexpected demand. No one spoke of Ifeoma's father, who had disappeared so long ago. But her aunt's eyes sparkled with determination, as if she knew this task would be nearly impossible. Ifeoma's face paled. "Auntie, that is not fair. We don't even know where he is." But Kola didn't flinch. He looked at the aunt, then at Ifeoma, and nodded. "I'll find him," he said quietly. "If it means proving myself to you, I'll do it." The room filled with whispers as Kola took on this impossible quest. Ifeoma's heart raced with fear and admiration. Kola was risking everything to be with her, but in her aunt's stern gaze, Ifeoma saw a glimmer of something else, a plan, a shadow of the past that threatened to pull them apart. As the days passed, Kola began his search for Ifeoma's father, uncovering secrets buried in whispers and unforgotten memories. Each clue led him deeper into a mystery, and Ifeoma couldn't shake the feeling that her aunt knew something she wasn't saying. Kola's journey to find Ifeoma's father took him far from the comfort of his own community. He traveled from village to village, following faint clues and listening to stories from people who remembered a man who once left a child and wife behind. Every time he found someone who might know more, they offered only scraps of information, never enough to piece together a clear picture. Ifeoma's heart grew heavier with each passing day. She admired Kola's determination, but the quest felt like a wound being reopened. Her mother rarely spoke about her father, and Ifeoma had grown up with only a vague sense of who he was. Yet now, as Kola searched, she began to realize how much his absence had shaped her family's fears and her mother's protective nature. After weeks of searching, Kola finally tracked down a man who claimed to know Ifeoma's father. He was living in a distant town, his life changed and shadowed by regrets from the past. Kola felt a strange sense of relief mixed with apprehension. This was the man who had left Nneka, who had caused Ifeoma so much pain without even knowing her. When Kola found him, Ifeoma's father was older, his face worn by years of struggle and sorrow. Surprised by the visit, he listened quietly as Kola explained why he was there. Kola's words were careful but honest. He wanted to marry Ifeoma, and her family needed answers to the questions her father had left behind. After a long silence, Ifeoma's father spoke. He admitted that living in Nneka and Ifeoma was the greatest mistake of his life. He had felt unprepared for the responsibility of a family and thought that disappearing would somehow save them from his own insecurities. But as the years passed, he realized the emptiness of his decision. He never reached out because he didn't believe they would forgive him. Moved by the man's honesty, Kola asked him if he would come to meet his daughter and her family, to make amends for the pain he had caused. At first, Ifeoma's father hesitated, unsure if he could face the family he had abandoned. But Kola's sincerity touched something within him, and he finally agreed. When Kola returned to the village with Ifeoma's father by his side, the community was shocked. Nneka's face softened with a mix of emotions: anger, grief, and a strange sense of relief. For years, she had carried the weight of her pain alone, and now the man responsible for it was finally standing before her, seeking her forgiveness. Ifeoma's aunt watched in silent awe as the scene unfolded. She hadn't expected Kola to succeed, and for the first time, she saw that he truly was different. She understood now that he wasn't just pursuing Ifeoma, he was willing to face the past, to rebuild bridges that had long since burned. Ifeoma's father, humbly and with tears in his eyes, apologized to Nneka and Ifeoma. "I was young, foolish and afraid," he confessed. "I can never take back what I did, but I want you to know that I have regretted it every day." Ifeoma looked at her mother, who had taught her to be strong, and at Kola, who had shown her the true meaning of commitment and love. In her heart, she felt the wounds of the past beginning to heal, and she knew her mother felt the same. The family reconciled, finding a bittersweet peace that had been absent for years. The experience taught them all valuable lessons, lessons that Ifeoma and Kola would carry with them as they began their life together. Moral lessons. 1. True love perseveres. Kola's determination to earn Ifeoma's family's trust and respect showed that love is not just about feelings, but about actions, patience, and resilience in the face of adversity. 2. Forgiveness heals. When Ifeoma's father sought forgiveness, he allowed healing to begin. Forgiving someone who had wronged us can be painful, but it is essential for letting go of the past and finding peace. 3. Respect for tradition strengthens bonds. Kola's willingness to understand and embrace Ifeoma's culture showed the family that he truly valued her heritage. Embracing traditions can strengthen connections, especially in diverse relationships. 4. Mistakes teach growth. Ifeoma's father learned the hard way that running from responsibilities only leads to regrets. Owning our mistakes and seeking forgiveness can help us grow and rebuild broken relationships. 5. Family is built on understanding. While traditions are important, understanding each other's values and finding common ground can help families grow stronger. Ifeoma's family learned to balance tradition with acceptance, paving the way for a happy future. We have come to the end of the story. If you love this video, please kindly share with your loved ones, leave us a comment on your opinion, and subscribe for another interesting video like this. Until I see you all on the next one.